Hey everybody, Mike Tanner with Tanner Realty Group, here with Austin Cassidy, also from Tanner Realty Group. And we are continuing on in our series in this podcast about our different questions from sellers. The first question we got is setting up a bidding war a good idea? So let's talk about that a little bit. You would think yes, but there may be some other things in there that you're not thinking about too from a logistical standpoint. So Austin, what do you think? Setting up a bidding war a good idea?
Well, bidding wars can help a seller, but there's also a downside to it. If the seller gets an offer that they like, that's over asking right away, yeah, you can see if we can set up a bidding war, but you don't want a good offer to disappear because you're playing games with them. You know, if you have a serious buyer who's ready to go, you want them to stick around because they're going to close on that deal. So playing games like a bidding war, yeah, you may be able to get a little bit more money, but you could also lose a deal and then sit on the market, and there's the downfall of your listing right there.
100% agree with you. And the other thing I would add to that too is that if bidding wars get too crazy with everything, if you've got financing involved, you may be running up against an appraisal issue, and then that could torpedo your entire deal.
Yeah, and yeah, if you want to set up a bidding war, I guess you could. However, if you price it right from the start, you're going to get good market traction. You're going to get serious buyers that are in that price range, because if you're listing it way below, you're going to get interested buyers, so many people walking through your house that aren't even serious. You want people in the home that you're selling to be serious, ready to buy, pre-approved, qualified, ready to go.
I was actually just going to bring that up about the pre-approval as well. There are so many looky-loos in neighborhoods, if you do a typical open house, I'm betting half the people that are in there wouldn't qualify for the house they're looking at. It's just kind of nosy neighbors that maybe want to see what's going on, and that's about it.
Yeah. So yes, setting up a bidding war, we're going to try to get you highest and best value. Is it advised to sit on a good offer and try to get a bidding war? No. If you have a good offer, take the good offer. Obviously, the terms make a difference here. However, playing games within a real estate transaction isn't always the best option.
I completely agree with you. Take your money and run if you got a great offer.
So you mentioned something about neighbors walking through their house or through the listing. What should a seller be asking of their neighbors for other buyers that are coming by? Should they be cleaning up their properties? What should we just be telling neighbors when your house goes live on the market?
Well, listen, every good sale, every good transaction on a listing, it ups the value of all the houses in the neighborhood. So it's really in the best interest of the neighbors to help each other out. If you've got a 56 Chevy truck up on blocks in your front yard that's totally rusted out, and you're trying to sell the place next door for $1 million, you may want to get that cleaned up a little bit. Now, that's obviously an over-exaggeration, but you get the point. We really want to put not only the house's best foot forward, but the neighborhood's best foot forward as well. I've actually got a buddy of mine from high school that I'm not going to name. He was mad at his neighbor, and so he put a toilet planter in his front yard just to screw with the neighbors and mess up the deal. And guess what? It worked. It turned away a bunch of buyers because they're like, hey, I don't want to live next door to that crazy neighbor.
Reminds me of the scene from Step Brothers.
Exactly.
So yeah, just being nice with your neighbors, not demanding things, saying you need to clean up this, but just having a conversation with them saying, I'm trying to get the best value of my home. Here's a few things that I'd appreciate that you can do. Most neighbors understand it if you come from contribution, because like Mike said, the value of their home may actually increase if your home sells for the value you're trying to get.
Yeah, and it just helps out everybody. And if neighbors are working together on things, hey, so much better. Everybody wins.
Yeah. So then talking about neighborhoods, what kinds of things turn off potential buyers, either from a particular home, particular neighborhood? Can you kind of touch on that?
Sure. Before we dive into this, we've actually written something called the Sellability Scale, and it's talking about not making your house livable but sellable. And there is a very large difference between the two. What makes something livable may mean it's comfortable for you, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a sellable feature in a house. So if you actually want to go to this, go to tannerrealtygroup.com, check out our blog, and you'll find the Sellability Scale on there. It's a free download. Go ahead and just download that. I think it's about, 12, 14 pages. It's really a checklist and an ability to be a way to grade your house to be able to know if you're ready to go on market or not. And so check it out, tannerrealtygroup.com. There's a couple of things in here I would say to answer that question. Number one, make everything as neutral as possible. The number one question we get is, should I take down all my personal photos? Well, that depends on you. If you're a private person, yes, take them down. If you don't really care if strangers coming through your house see your family, then leave them up. Doesn't matter to us one way or the other. And frankly, it really doesn't matter to many buyers as well. Some buyers will say, oh, it makes the house more personable to see the family pictures. Some buyers will say, I don't care about who lives here before, I just want the house. So it's really kind of a crapshoot with that. But make everything as neutral as possible from a decor standpoint. If you have walls that are kind of loud colors, my daughter, when she was young, she's getting ready to graduate from college right now, but when she was young, everything was purple and pink in her room. She loved it that way. Well, that's what if you have a buyer that has a couple of boys in their family? The boys are going to walk in there and go, this sucks. This is a girl's room. I don't want this. And so I would make everything as neutral as you possibly can, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, even though paint may be something easy, it's also a visual, like you said, for the kids. And families take kids' consideration serious sometimes. And you don't want to lose a deal over that. So, great. Last question we have here for today's podcast.
You know what? Actually, before we move on,
go ahead.
Sorry about that. I just thought of something. We had some buyers not make an offer on a house that they could afford. It was actually way under their budget, and this was in Portland, because the interior of the house was overly politicized. These folks, they were kind of a little extreme in their political views, and I'm not going to tell you if it was left or right, because that's not the point. But the point is they were so over the top with their political views that they had political ads in their front yard. They had signage inside their house for one particular candidate, and these buyers walked in and went, I don't want to live in a place like this. These folks are weirdos. They're extremists. And so it goes back to making everything as neutral as possible. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to throw that in there too.
Yeah, thanks for adding that.
Yeah.
So last question here. Do virtual tour videos really help in the listing?
Absolutely they do. We ran some numbers so you could kind of get an idea of how much tours help. We have a latest listing out in Washougal and Austin. It's your listing, actually, and did a great job on that, priced it well. It's some acreage and pretty cool place, really. My favorite part is the barn. It's really neat. It's got a tack room in it and cool place. But in the last 24 hours on this listing, I was looking at our numbers on the MLS, our local MLS here in Southwest Washington and the Portland metro area. There was 175 views in 24 hours. Now, we're recording this at lunchtime on a Wednesday. We went live, like noon yesterday?
Yeah.
Okay, so 175 views on our MLS. In that same amount of time, we launched a Facebook video. It was a video walkthrough, drone shots, everything else. And I did the intro. We kind of did a tour of the entire property. Austin, you did the outro of the video. And we have reached over 2,700 people in that amount of time, in 24 hours, because we launched the Facebook ad at the same time we went live on the RMLS. And then on top of that, of course, Zillow pulls from the RMLS, just like our website does, just like all of them do. They don't do anything special. They just pull from the RMLS. Well, they had 789 views of the house. So you look at the static photos, and we've got 175 on RMLS, 789 on Zillow. Neither of those had a video tour. The video tour on Facebook that we paid to get in front of people reached 2,700 people. So my answer to that question is absolutely it makes a big difference, because there is no way I could get 2,700 sets of eyes on that property in 24 hours.
Yeah, definitely. And although the video may not necessarily sell the home, it's a marketing strategy to, like Mike said, get the home in front of 2,700 people in less than 24 hours. And you don't want 2,700 people walking through your home. So giving them the virtual walkthrough allows them to get an idea of the home before they even get onto the property. And this allows you to get more serious buyers in the door rather than just the looky-loos.
Absolutely. And not only do you not want that many people through, it's physically impossible to get that many people through. That's over 100 people an hour. I mean, there's no way you could do that.
Yeah, and so video tours, we take two different approaches with these actually. So we have a video walkthrough that's done by a professional videographer, and then we also do a 3D tour that creates a dollhouse of the property. Do you kind of want to touch on the difference of those and kind of how they kind of match up?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple different technologies that the listeners are probably familiar with. One is called Aster Room. We use that. And another one is called Matterport. And we've used that before too. Both great services. Well, what they do is you basically set up a camera on a tripod, and it rotates around and it captures a 3D picture of that room. And then the final product of that, you're actually able to click through each room and spin around from the camera's viewpoint, so you can get a feel for what that room really looks like. And we do that all over the place, even in the front yard, backyard, so you can kind of get an idea of the scope of the house and virtually get the best feel of the house possible. The dollhouse, which you referred to, is actually an expanded view of all of those rooms. And so it actually puts together the entire house. And the reason it's called the dollhouse is because it looks like a Barbie dollhouse online, right? I mentioned my daughter not too long ago. I was well too familiar with Barbie dollhouses when she was little. And so it looks exactly like that. You have an idea of what the upstairs looks like, the downstairs looks like, kind of where all the room placement is. And then in addition, that also allows us to create a 2D floor plan, just like you would get in new construction. Mm-hmm. We can do that on an existing home, even an older home, to be able to come up with a floor plan, so we don't have to dig up the seller doesn't have to dig up old floor plans or anything. We can actually create those off of the technology we use.
Well, great. Yeah, thanks for touching on that. Well, if that's all we have for today, we have more questions coming and answers coming for you guys here in the next few podcasts. If you have any questions about the topics covered today, or we just haven't answered your question yet, feel free to comment and let us know your questions. We'd be happy to answer them. Thanks.